Hey, welcome back to One American's Perspective. It's been a little bit since I've done a video, so I'm jumping back in after rewatching some of the old ones to kind of assemble some of the topics that I might have opened up in passing or mentioned that I would get back to in some of the videos at the recommendation of a friend of mine. And one of those that I hit early on in one of the earlier videos was a distinction between the terms knowledge and wisdom. The two are often used interchangeably, and there is quite a lot of overlap, and they're connected for certain. However, the distinction between the two, I think, is important, especially when looked at through the context of modern culture today. So I'm going to read you some of the dictionary definitions, and you'll be able to see some of the overlap, and then just small pieces of the distinctions that I'm going to expound upon and talk about how I think they apply to some of our cultural situations in America today. So the first of which is knowledge. Facts, information, and skills acquired by a person through experience or education. The theoretical or practical understanding of a subject. So that's knowledge. Wisdom, on the other hand, is the quality of having experience, knowledge, and good judgment. The quality of being wise. So when I think of knowledge, I think of information. You know, it's been said that we're in the information age. More information than probably ever before is right at the fingertips of the average citizen in the U.S. Thanks to the internet. We can look up videos, blogs, journals, scientific reporting on a vast variety of subjects that previously, you know, just over 100 years ago, or maybe not even, that information was much less accessible, much more guarded, sometimes intentionally, sometimes not intentionally, just by virtue of a lack of technological advantage. And they were housed in specific areas, one of which being universities, so higher level education, another being in books. It wasn't until the last 150 years where in the West, literacy rates rose to a point where it was more uncommon to be illiterate than it was to be literate. Where for a long time, the ability to read and write was actually the opposite. It was uncommon. So with the reading and writing came the ability to now access the knowledge contained in books, contained in newspapers, articles, journals, what have you. But even still, you had to have a tangible copy. There wasn't the worldwide internet where information is beamed to you faster than the speed of light, like it is now. So with that, we have all this information and knowledge at our fingertips. How to bake sourdough bread, how to build a chicken coop, how to reduce temperature if one of your children is sick. Just things that I've looked up recently. Those things are easily accessible now. Knowledge, wisdom comes to the practical application of that knowledge. So it was essential, I think, in the definition. Again, it said the quality of having that knowledge and the practical experience. So all of that information, and I think this is something we see quite frequently, is there's all this knowledge at our fingertips, but I don't necessarily think that knowledge leads to a wiser culture or a wiser individual. In fact, sometimes the overabundance of knowledge can become crippling to where now, well, do I apply this or this? When and where do I apply these things? If I have a toolbox full of 1,000 tools, well, maybe I'm looking for the exact right tool for the job, where if I had a toolbox of 3, my options are limited, but I can apply that tool more readily because I only know how to use that tool and I use it in a multifaceted way. So the knowledge itself doesn't force action. It gives somebody a reservoir of information to draw on, but the application of that knowledge and when and how to use that knowledge comes from wisdom. So there's a couple quotes that I think of when I think of this topic. The first of which a friend of mine has been saying a lot lately, but I've heard for a long time, which is that a smart man learns from his own mistakes, a wise man learns from the mistakes of others. So they're able to observe pain, suffering in another individual, and then apply that information to their own life without having to undergo that in themselves. Smart people are like, ooh, I touched a hot stove, probably shouldn't do that again. Wise person sees somebody else touch a hot stove and says, oh, that stove is hot, I probably shouldn't touch it. And they save themselves the pain. The second of which, a distinction between wisdom and knowledge is not really a saying, but kind of a story to maybe highlight it. So for anybody that's married or been in a long-term relationship, you can be right and you can be wrong at the same time, which is something that doesn't make any sense. But with a little wisdom and experience, you realize, like, well, let's say you're in a disagreement with your significant other, and you're 100% right. If you go about communicating that in the wrong ways, you can be right all day long. It's not going to smooth things over with your significant other. It's not going to help strengthen your relationship. In fact, it might hurt it, even if you're right, if you go about doing it in the wrong way. So through a little bit of wisdom and experience in that relationship, you realize, well, I might have the right information at hand, but I need to be careful about how I deliver such information so that I don't make things worse, but I actually make things better. The last thing I'll say about knowledge and wisdom is, in general, our education system today. I don't know if it's always been this way, but certainly today it is about the imparting of knowledge. So two things. One, the universities, because of the scarcity of this information, used to be the safeguard of this. They used to house this, and they were one of the only sources to do so. Now, because of the vast variety and the accessibility of that information, they no longer have a monopoly on that information. So and this is a topic for another video, which is kind of ironic considering this is a leapfrog from a previous one, is that maybe the universities aren't as necessary as they once were for as many people as they used to be. Not saying that they're irrelevant altogether, but if you are looking for a specific type of information, it's quite possible, maybe even probable, that the universities are not the best place to attend to spend your time and money to gather that information. There's probably more efficient ways to do that. So that's the first thing, is that the universities seem to teach this education, and that, one, they're not the only source of information. The problem with all of the information now on a mass social system, just like the individual level, is you have all this information, but if you don't have the wisdom to apply it properly, it can actually be detrimental. We can kind of be over inundated with information and freeze and not know what to do, or we can apply the wrong information at the wrong time, which, just as in the case of the relationship, may actually make things worse. So where is wisdom found? How do we find wisdom? Another saying is that we make good decisions through experience, and we gain experience through bad decisions. So again, back to the smart man learning from his own mistakes, the wise man learning from the mistakes of others. We can gather the wisdom from others in order to make good decisions. So where does that house? Usually it's in elders. They've had more experience and the ability to make better decisions. So that's something that I'll leave you with right now. And I hope you guys have a good day. My kids are knocking, so I got to get going. I'll talk to you later. Bye.